Okay, so to start off, I think the best way to start this review is to talk about how Twitter was practically blowing up and trending for this episode. And at first, I didn't entirely understand why, but after watching the episode itself, I had one of those, oh yeah, that's why moments, because this is not only the moment in the series where the fight with Luffy and Kaido reaches its biggest turning point, where I guess you could call it the second round of Luffy's fight with Kaido officially ends with Luffy having spent all his energy and falls off Onigashima incapacitated. But it's also the moment where Big Mom went absolutely beast mode, wrecking ulti, and yeah, the animation was just off the fucking wall, which I want to give a lot of credit where it's due for this episode, because once again Toei brought on a couple guest animators to this episode, and although it was just a couple frames and cuts of animation, is when Toei does this that I feel it gives the production team, the main production team, just that extra little bit more time and freedom to really focus on the production of an episode itself, like on the production of an episode where it matters. And while not a guarantee of having a great episode, most of the time I think just bringing in that extra bit of help allows the team to really pump out an episode like this. Because again, animation was not only fantastic, but this is one of those episodes where every frame, every moment, I'm sure it can be picked apart relentlessly. Every frame and every moment of animation felt perfect. I mean, a few minor frames of art being off model, but honestly, that's really my only complaint with it. Like, this was an amazingly animated episode. Quickly getting back to Luffy falling off Onigashima, though, one thing I like with this part of the episode is they do provide a little bit more of an explanation compared to the manga for how and why this happened, because in the manga, it just kind of cuts to Luffy falling off Onigashima without really all that much of an explanation, but here it is made a little more clear that a combination of Kaido's just overwhelming strength plus Luffy just overexerting himself throughout the entire battle ultimately caused his body's endurance to just give out, and I know some people might not like this, but honestly, it's very on brand for something like this to happen to Luffy. Like, he pushes himself beyond his limits, and he does pay the ultimate price for this. Now, obviously, this is in the end, and anyone like me who's read the manga knows what's about to happen next, but it'll be interesting to see just how long they're going to keep Luffy pseudo-dead in the anime, because this might be the ticket Toei needs to slow things down a bit if they need to, and just I guess focus on other fights and see how long they can kind of extend those fights and all that. One thing I also like, though, is how this scene kind of feels even more tied into Sanji's scene in the beginning of the episode, where he senses something just doesn't his intuition senses something just doesn't feel right with leaving Luffy alone to fight Kaido, and ultimately his senses prove out to be right. That yeah, ultimately what happened there. But even more than that, one other thing I also like is we see Kaido when upon seeing Luffy falling off Onigashima, Kaido almost kind of has a moment of of realization and revelation to him for himself, that he realized that, oh shit, I was getting too excited, I was getting too engulfed in the battle in order to really pay attention to what's going on. It's one of those scenes. It's one of those moments for Kaido where he realizes he was getting a little too enraptured in the battle in order to he wasn't fully paying attention to his surroundings and what was going on. It was practically a thing where he was practically destroying Onigashima in itself, and I do like how that kind of and just not realizing that maybe he needed to hold back a little. I do like how he does kind of come to that realization a bit in this episode. Now, with that said, let's talk pacing, because as you'll know from my review last week, I had stated how that episode kind of felt like Toei falling back too much on their usual tricks, and that the pacing of that episode had a lot of moments where it felt like it was being being intentionally padded or dragged out for time, but honestly, this episode did feel like a much better overall, and I don't want to say that we're right back on track with pacing, but just that this felt like just a very well-paced episode. This felt like just a very amazingly paced episode, where there were very few moments that actually felt wasted, and this episode felt like the team made much better use of time within the episode, which I know for a lot of people the pacing is going to be bad regardless, because the time skip in general has been synonymous with that whole reputation of being sluggish, slow-paced, and feeling like it doesn't go anywhere. But honestly, even in episodes like last week's, Toei, to their credit, have done a lot to try their best to mitigate this problem. It's just that last week's episode kind of stood out as a slight return to how they used to handle the pacing, whereas this one felt perfectly paced, and how even in the slower moments there was always something happening, always a rising action occurring, and just felt like things were progressing, which granted, again, that could be again because we have reached like a major turning point in the arc, but yeah. And yeah, honestly, I genuinely felt for Zeus in this episode. Like, seeing him get placed so casually by Hera, and Hera herself being so easily accepted by Big Mom, Napoleon, and Prometheus, like, even being rejected by Nami, like, it made me feel for my man. Like, my man's got nowhere to go, no place to call home. It's that feeling of being utterly abandoned, and although they did play it slightly for comedy with Big Mom, saying he's outlived, just seeing Big Mom saying he's outlived his usefulness, I still feel for him. Like, that's one thing I will always give to One Piece. It doesn't matter who the character is or what they look like, even if they don't, even if you don't like the character, you will always get that one moment where you can't help but feel for what they're feeling or what they're going through, no matter what species they are, really, when it comes to One Piece. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much. But yeah, guys, that's. I guess just to cap it off, like, again, Big Mom, she just thwacked ulti, and honestly, it just felt so fucking good. Like, I forgot. It was one thing for Big Mom to like beat page one to a pulp, but seeing Big Mom thwack ulti just in the way she did, that was just so good. Felt so good. Felt so satisfying. I just loved the fuck out of it. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight with me, signing off. Later, everyone.